Thanks everyone for joining in. It's a great day to be talking about building D2C funnels and digital brands. Zomato has just gone IPO, one of India's internet economy uh, doyens. And yeah, I mean the IPO seems to have popped, and I think it's just a sign of things to come and how the digital economy in India is just chugging along. Um, Thank you so much, Vishal and Rachna, for joining us today. Um, Vishal and Rachna are co-founders at gynoveda.com, and it's a very interesting and exciting brand in our portfolio, trying to solve the women's wellness space. Um, I also have a couple of my colleagues, and um, while they are on off screen and on mute, this whole webinar is being uh, moderated by Rimsha. And in case, as we go along the conversation, if any of you have any questions that you would like to ask, either Vishal or Rachna or me at Fireside, please put your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll try and pick up as many as we can as we go through this conversation. So without further ado, uh, Vishal, Rachna, thanks so much for being here, and thanks for taking the time. I know you guys are busy folks, and thanks for taking the time to share your learnings with us.
Thank you for having us,
Thank you
Vinay.
for having us, Vinay, and pleasure. Pleasure is all ours.
So, so the first and obvious question, Vishal and Rachna, is how did this whole concept of Gynoveda start, and what pushed you to focus on a D2C go-to-market model?
I think, Vinay, it all started with my own personal difficulty and the lifestyle disorder that I faced in my late 20s. I used to work for a BPO for almost 6 years. I used to do night shifts straight 6 to 7 years. I was battling for almost 7, 8 years with a very common lifestyle disorder today, which is psoriasis, which is a skin disorder, and asthma. I I like went to endless doctors for both of it. Tried different things, right, from allopathy to homeopathy, for almost 7, 8 years. Nothing worked. Finally, I turned to Ayurveda by chance, and obviously started with a lot of skepticism, circling around Ayurveda. But I said, I guess let me give it a try. It was a pretty chronic situation, and I was thoroughly surprised with the kind of results that I got. Ayurveda completely uh, helped me recover and treat the root cause of my lifestyle disorder. And while I was on the journey, switching from what I have tried to now Ayurveda, having great results, I started, studying a lot about that, and eventually discovered, while having conversations with Rachna, that one of the things that Ayurveda also does amazingly well is treat the period disorders. And as I studied further, what I realized is most of the menstrual disorders are actually lifestyle disorders. It is resulting out of faulty lifestyle. So I think I got amazing results from Ayurveda. I was quite kicked about. Rachna and I, we were having a conversation over chai. We said we have to do something in the Ayurveda space, and that was a time when I was in the I was already with Geo, with ACO. That was a journey that was going through. And Rachna was going through her own journey with writing her book, Happiness Ki Coach. She was researching specifically women health and happiness space. And she's been with BPO for almost 10 years in her life. She, up close and personal, interacted with thousands and thousands of women. And she had some learnings, and I would let her rather cover that piece of learning.
Yeah, so it was actually a very interesting juncture, right? Back then, when I was in the corporate world and leading large teams, women centric teams in BPOs, I would see at close quarters, Vinay, how period problems were coming in the way of women really doing what they wanted to do. And I think there was also this whole guilt around having to take time off from work, whether it's because of period pain, irregular periods, pretty much all the problems that periods pose on us as women. And back then I didn't know that, there's going to be something that I would be able to do about it, but I that thought clearly stayed top of my mind. And then as life progressed, and as I was writing my book and in my interactions again with thousands of women, I think that fact pretty much came back to the surface, saying that between the age of 15, when a young girl starts her first period, until the age of menopause, which is about 50, almost like 40 years of our life, there are so many things that we deal with, and they stop us from really becoming what we want to do, achieving our dreams, becoming the best version of ourselves. So, very clearly, there was a need to address that. And having seen the way Vishal got results with Ayurveda, I don't think we needed any more, reassurance about how Ayurveda can provide a very natural and a safe solution to women's problems. And then, about 2.5 years back, both of us, in our own small capacity, invested, kind of angel invested in a clinic in Mumbai, where Ayurveda was being used to treat lifestyle disorders. And I saw at first hand quarters, I got to see the number of women who were coming there with PCOS, with heavy bleeding, with abnormal vaginal discharge, and those kind of problems. And clearly, the writing on the wall was that we had to do something about it. So I think Vishal's deep orientation of Ayurveda, and I would say my advocacy for doing something around women's health, kind of came together. And then we found Dr. Aarti Patil, who is an MD obstetrics and gynecologist. In fact, one of the rare Ayurveda doctors who's had massive experience in treating women with menstrual disorders. We actually went with a business plan to her. I mean, it's a funny story, it's for some other time, but literally kind of identifying her from our list, going, meeting her, explaining her the vision. And because she herself wanted to do a deep impact on women's health, I think the three of us beautifully integrated together and gave birth to Gynoveda, which is a combination of two words: Gyno, which stands for a woman, and Veda, which is the knowledge of Ayurveda. So that's how our journey began.
So it's truly a fruit of combined labor with Ayurveda and some of the themes that are so close to your heart, Rachna. And so when you started this business, I mean, you could have gone offline, you could have gone to marketplaces, you could have gone to vertical marketplaces, but you chose the D2C route to start this business. A little bit about the thinking behind that and why the D2C go-to-market as a first port of call.
So I think Vinay, when we invested in clinic, we were very hands-on with that. We quickly realized, when it comes to the clinic chain model, that becomes relatively difficult. And I think for Rachna and me, the larger dream was to make Ayurveda as the number one choice when it comes to period problem. In fact, that from that day, when we said, what is a big dream? What is the big picture? And we said at some day, we would want Google or Gynax se pehle Gynoveda. And I said, if that's the dream, that's the vision, then we have to go directly to consumer, because that's the fastest way to go to the to scale and reach out to millions and millions of people. The second piece I feel is this has tremendous potential globally. If there are two things that India can give the world, is yoga and Ayurveda. And if we have to go on the global stage and make Ayurveda as the number one choice for menstrual disorder, then there is no better way than digital directly to consumer first. And I think the second piece, while that is a dream, I've been into the digital space for almost now 15 years. What happened in the last 5 years is very different. It's the first time in the human history that you can directly go to the consumer anywhere in the world. So smartphone revolution gave birth to, I feel, the true D2C stack. And there are 5 things that are important when you're going directly to consumer. There are 5 things that forms the part of the stack. One, it begins with communicating to your end consumer. And the conventional way of consuming to the end consumer was through television. So if you have a message, you need to communicate that message to the large audience. Conventional way was to go to a television and talk about it. But today's smartphone is the new television for the millennial population across the world. So I can customize my message based on regional language or even based on the interest. So I think that's the first layer of the stack. The second layer is, I feel that cloud-based shop, whether it is in the form of website or in the form of marketplace, you can go to Amazon, you can really set up your shop very, very quickly. I think the time to set up the shop has drastically gone down as compared to the conventional world. Second piece, in the conventional world, you had to go to your wholesaler, retailer to eventually, distribute your product. So I think the distribution channel has been democratized. You can simply start your website or go to the marketplaces and start directly going to the consumer. I think the third piece in the D2C stack that really happened, which has never happened before, is the last mile connectivity. Today, if I want to deliver my goods within a day, on the same day, that's today possible with almost like 12 to 15 different logistic players across India delivering in 25,000 different pin codes. The fourth piece is, I think the power has shifted in the hands of the consumer. If you deliver good product, great product, bad product, whichever ways, you come to know about it the next day by way of reviews. So the voice of customer, the voice of consumer has become truly direct. So I can understand what's positive, what's negative about consumer the very next day. As compared to the conventional world where I would go via wholesaler, retailer, and then eventually get the consumer insights. Today, that's as short as probably a few hours. You put out something out there and you get reviews within no time. And the fifth layer of the stack, which is super critical, is the consumer behavior itself. I think today's consumer wants to be hands-on. I think they love self-care. They want to take informed decisions. So I think there has never been a time when all these 5 things have come together. It's a great opportunity for the business to go directly to the consumer, and it's a great opportunity for the consumer to interact directly with the business. So I think there is no better way today, if you have something that is applicable at the World Forum, to go directly to the consumer with digital as a medium.
You chose the D2C route, and you had two problem statements to begin with, right? You had an idea of Gynoveda, which is Gyna Ayurveda. You have to first establish product market fit, so that the kind of products that you launch, consumers love it, and there is that product market fit that comes. Secondly, you have to establish your brand. How has going D2C actually enabled you on these two vectors, or how has it helped you establish PMF or start the journey of a brand creation? And why do you think this is in your view, a better route than any other route that you could have potentially chosen?
I think building a brand, I don't think so. I feel it doesn't start with building a brand. I feel it starts with what problem are we trying to solve? And we narrowed down to one problem. So the power of one is what we use. I think we asked ourselves the question, are we trying to grab the market share of something which is already there, which is already selling, and we have a better proposition for the consumer, a better product? Or there is a complete transformation in terms of offering. So today, for a lifestyle disorder, the offering is, and the message is, that you manage the problem life. We are saying it can be treated. You can be free from the problem. And I have seen that up close and personal in my own life, where I was told for 7 years that you have to learn to manage your psoriasis, manage your asthma. Ayurveda doctor told me, give me 60 days, you'll be free from it. I think it's a radically different way of solving the problem because the problem has not been solved before. So I think the question we asked at a strategic level when we were starting is, are we trying to get X percentage of market share by being incrementally better in our product? Or are we trying to create a new category altogether? I think we chose the later. We are creating a new category. So I think it started with that, and that's a big hurdle. I feel that's the number one hurdle to really cross when you're really at a very nascent stage, is to have absolute clarity on where you want to go. Having crossed that and having clarity that this is the problem, this is the solution, where is the proof of concept? I think the proof of concept is the key. At macroeconomic level, every problem looks beautiful to be solved, and every person who goes out there feels that he can solve the problem. But microeconomics can be very, very different. So proof of concept is super critical. The proof of concept can be achieved either with 100 customers, 1,000 customers. Every business differs in that sense. But we said, let's try and see if the solution works while it was already working. But I think when we go directly to consumer and try with 100 people, what are the challenges? So our first 100 customers and going to them directly was very different than what it is today. Because at that time, for us, the number one priority was to get consumer insight and intimately understand how the product works with the consumer. And that intimate feedback is super critical to improvise the product.
That's an interesting thought, right? So first 100 customers, intimately understand them, see how you solve for their issues, and then scale it up. So what kind of metrics and what kind of milestones were you looking for when you went for the first 100 customers? What gave you confidence ki, yeah, this is now looking like product market fit? It's looking like things are kind of settling down, and now there's a model that we can scale up. So what kind of milestones were you looking for? What kind of metrics did you really track?
I think metrics when we wanted to go from 100 to 1,000 was different. And when we was trying to do 1,000 to a lakh, I think the metrics changed. From 100 to 1,000, the metric was, is this business model viable when we are going directly to consumer? So the most important piece was business model, which is unit economics wise, will it make sense? And is it applicable to a larger audience? And the dream of number one choice when it comes to period problem is Ayurveda. Business model wise, is my unit economics making sense of going directly to consumer? Which means, what is my cost of goods sold? What is my logistics cost? What is my marketing cost? What is my people cost? All of those, from a business modeling standpoint, at larger scale, will it make sense? And I think that sense you get firsthand by way of trying it on 1,000 and not on 100. The 100 is all about problem solution. The 100 to 1,000 or 100 to 5,000, I'm not getting into those numbers, but I think is all about validation of business model. But when you're looking at a journey from 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 to a lakh, I think the metrics looks very, very different. And the way you get there, at least for us, I realized is a completely different approach. Up till 1,000, 5,000, it was hustle, Rachna getting on a chat with consumers, giving them support, very, very hands-on. But now we are attempting for like a lakh consumer. How do you really, 2, 3, 5 people really get there? And over the course, we realized that 4 things really mattered. Consumer insight, which we got from our first 1,000 consumers, and what are their pain areas? Why would they reject us? Why would they accept us? The journey that they follow while they're buying, and the method we will use to get there in terms of lakh, and eventually iterations. I think we have at least had like 3,000 to 4,000 iterations before I can say, and we're still iterating. So I think when we have got to now like a lakh people to interact with, my metrics have completely changed. Now it is no more business model. Yeah. And we kind of boil down to 5 things, or I would say 5 R's in the model. which is
Oh, in
what
fact, I'm
we
going to come to those 5 hours,
But
Professor
yeah,
Vishal.
you know, just to add to what Vishal said, and I think the whole excitement for somebody who's starting up, honestly, I think the first 100 customers, right? I mean, everyone wants to know how do you really get there? And while Vishal kind of explained more on the business side, for us, Vinay, by the time we had already established Ayurveda and periods, I think secondary research had clearly indicated how huge the market is. I mean, we knew in 2019 then one in every four women was affected by PCOS, was going through period problems, and she was looking for a solution. But I think with the first 100 customers, it's all about, are they really going to pay you from their pocket? I think
Oh,
it's as basic as that, right? I mean, our price points were a little higher then. It's a new brand, nobody knows you. Literally, you're talking to every customer. I mean, by the way, today on my notes section, I still have names of those 100 customers because it's like you just want to hold on to them forever. And I think that's the beauty of starting up. And it is about whether will they pay, and if they are going to pay that price point, which is that 1800 rupees for, let's say, an Ayurvedic PCOS kit from a brand new company, knowing why did they pay for it, I think was important. And that is where our first hand experience of having done chats, calls, to the extent wherein I remember that, when we built the period test, and we can talk about it a little in terms of the tech architecture, but when we built the period test and the data points would come into the Google Sheet, I would call up that consumer, and most often I've got somebody banging down the phone on me saying, like, who the hell are you, right? I mean, and you just call up somebody and say, hey, I'm the co-founder of Gynoveda, you just took this period test, how did you find it? And tap. So to kind of not give up but persist in saying, listen, I have to understand, why did she take the test, why did she pay for the product? I think that's where we were really really obsessed with. And in hindsight, I think that's something that's going to stay with a founder all along, is really being close to your consumers.
And it's not actually talking, and Professor Vishal, I'm going to come back to the 5 hours. So the last time I heard, a letter and a number together was 4 Ps when Professor Kotler talked about it. But this is going into the new digital marketing textbook of the future. But Rachna, since you talked about your first few consumers and intimacy with them, community, and there's a question that's already come up. Very curious to know what's the role of this whole social angle of brand creation as a D2C brand. What's the role of community? How do you leverage it? How do you really, go about building one? And how do you nurture one? And how do you actually create one? What's the role of influencers? What's the role of this entire uh, piece on, social enablers in actually creating a D2C brand?
Yeah, I think very interesting question, Vinay, and thank you for bringing out the community-driven perspective, because I think that's very, very key to Gynoveda and very key to, I think, the segment which we are in. Right? It is a very intimate topic, and it is an area which is still in some parts of India considered taboo, and there's this whole social piece to it. I think when we were building the community a few months back, Vinay, the number one question that I asked myself was clearly, why am I building the community? Why even take that approach, right? Because obviously there are case studies and success stories of brands that have done phenomenally well without having a community first approach. The answer was very clear, that we wanted to build the world's largest safe online space for, and I think very non judgmental space for women to just talk about their problems. And it's much more easier to talk about your problems to a stranger than actually talking it with somebody because there is this whole fear of being judged. So I think it started with, honestly, as basic as that, saying, ki, yaar, just come there and just vent it out, bring it out, flush it out, but you will have somebody or the other give you an answer or at least empathize with you. So I think it started with first getting that why right. And the second piece then is, now that the community is organically growing, because in our case, we were very clear that, being a very young startup, just getting our first 100, 500 consumers, we wanted it to be almost like a second home for them. So the second learning that I had with this community was, it's not a brand talking to consumers. It is a person talking to another woman.
And for the benefit of the audience, what's this community called?
Yes, so it's a Facebook group. It's a community today which has more than about 13,000 women, and it's called Circle of Sisterhood. And as the name stands for, it's truly building a sisterhood and getting to be like the world's largest place where women can talk about menstrual and reproductive health. And it's being built brick by brick, right? So the second thing was, like I said, you have social handles where a brand can communicate something to its prospects or its consumers, but when it's a community, we wanted it to be a woman to woman relationship. So I think high on empathy, high on just encouraging women to talk about everything that they feel like. And it's so encouraging to see that today women are actually clicking pictures of the medicines. I never thought in my lifetime that I would have so much of user generated content that these women will give us. Because to imagine that they will take pictures of a PCOS kit and send it to us saying that, I'm so happy I've got it and stuff like that, I think truly was very heartening.
And a lot of this community building, does it only happen on open platforms like Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, etc., or is it also on dark social platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, I mean Zoom call, webinars, and stuff like that? If you can just shed some light and help us understand how does one go about leveraging all the different tools one has as a brand owner to encourage community building and social proof for the brand.
Sure, very interesting again. I think it's understanding the platform. You have to know what platform is being used for what, right? In our case, the community, like I said, is just truly to celebrate the spirit of sisterhood. And now there is so much of trust and engagement that's coming into the community that, of course, you can get your new products tested in that community before you launch a new product. You can have your entire UGC that comes out. When it comes to webinars, in our case, it's clearly about nurturing a relationship. It's almost like how you are hosting this webinar, right? For the benefit of the entire founder ecosystem. That's pretty much what I think a purpose of a webinar is. How do you educate women about what happens when they start consuming our Ayurvedic pills? What's the success they will see? What to expect? So I think it's more informational. WhatsApp again is a very very personalized relationship, and you can't make it really like a broadcasting or anything because it loses its fun. So each of these levers, Vinay, actually got tested at some stage. But I would definitely think that an intimate space like women's health or solving period problems. Personally, in our experience, I think having a community first approach has really been extremely heartening for us.
Got it. So let's say you got your products, you got a community going. Vishal, you got your unit economics going. Coming back to the 5 Rs, what were the operational metrics that you were looking at to give yourself and your team confidence that yes, now I can, invest slightly bigger dollars? And also a question that has come up in one of the questions saying, okay, you got your first 100 or 1,000 customers, you got your confidence that this seems to be working, whether it's operational metrics, business metrics, then how do you scale up from there? So a little bit about the initial metrics and then how do you scale from there?
Yeah, I think from 100 to 100,000, honestly, we didn't have we didn't have any answer. So we have to, admit that I don't know and I need to figure it out. I think that's the beauty of actually this journey also. Because if you keep a destination in mind, कि मुझे यहाँ पहुंचना है, then this journey can be very frustrating. And even before we touch the measurable metric, Vinay, I want to touch upon the emotional metric, which is very critical, because this is very, very unique of a startup ecosystem. Is if we are working for, if at least I would have worked for a dollar or a value, I don't think so I would have survived the last, 18, 20 months of grilling, time. What really drove me is is the journey. Is it rewarding? And that reward comes from actually figuring it out. So 100 to 100,000, I really did not know how we're going to get there. Honestly, I did not even know how will we get from 0 to 100. And maybe, that's one question I would like to ask today, Vinay, publicly, that why did you even choose Gynoveda? You have 30 different D2C, companies in your portfolio. Eventually, that's something you want. You're already seeing us going from 0 to 200,000. Maybe we are doing something right, something wrong. I mean, maybe that's a perspective I would like to get, down the conversation if time permits. But 100 to 100,000, I felt was not about capturing the whole market, but using, and it helps me. I think if there is some blueprints, there is some framework, it's a guiding force because I really don't know. So I discovered this model of Rogers diffusion model, which says don't look at the whole millions of users as homogeneous. Look at them as heterogeneous. And the model says that there are early adopters, early majorities, late majorities, and laggards. Early adopters are really small set of people, those 10, 12% in the market, who would take the risk, who would take the informed risk. I think 100 to probably 10,000, we focused only on that mindset because we didn't have any customer reviews to show, we did not have any validations. So we played on the science which appeals to the reasoning mind. And we presented our case in front of the consumer. That's saying, hey, modern science solves the problem like this. Ayurveda solves it like this. Consumer was able to take an informed decision. Early majority. Early majority takes the decision purely based on if it's work for others, it will work for me. So that's the part, which is about 20-25% of the market. And their consumer reviews, Rachna does, endless customer stories on videos. There they need validation. I think beyond this, we have yet to figure it out. So we have figured out so far till, early majority.
So product features, functional benefits for the early majority and social proof for the next set of customers.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. And yeah, so I think 100 to 100,000 customers was all figuring it out. I really don't have a set recipe for that to share.
And your category is a high frequency category. People buy you again and again. And at what point of time do you say, hey, I think I'm hitting product market fit. I think I'm hitting a business model fit. And could you shed some light on that entire 5R framework that you developed that gave you and us confidence to, really double down and say, okay, it's time to grow?
Yeah, I think those are business metrics that just gives you the confidence while you're hustling it out and building the business. You need some lighthouse to guide you. That are we in the right direction? And out of intuition, having conversations with you, learning from other contemporary founders, talking to them, I think I learned that if I control 5 things, or if I watch 5 things, it might help me stay on course. One is ROAS, which is return on ad spend. The second piece is repeats. I've acquired my first time customer. Will they buy the second time? If they're not going to buy the second time, something has horribly gone. Yeah. The third piece is, all right, you bought from me the second time or the third time. Now, what's the feedback? So the third R is the reviews, good or bad, whichever ways. I think reviews really matter. Now, if you've given me a good review and you feel good about it, then are you going to refer? So that's the 4th R. And the 5th R, which is very specific to India, being the largest market, from a D2C standpoint, is the RTO. and COD is not going away anywhere. When we started the business, our CODs were in the range of 95, 90%. Today, we are at about 40% COD. And our RTOs have massively dwindled from as high as 29% to now down to 9%. So yeah, 5 hours, which is ROS, repeats, referrals, reviews, and RTO.
And if I were to capture what from day one when you started, when you had your zero customers and you just started your journey on the first 100 or 1,000 to now where you have a 100,000 plus customers, what metrics are unchanged and what metrics do you think you need to relook and start looking at the next level of things to watch for?
I think it's the Jimmy, which is JIMI. Uh, Clearly plot out the consumer journey, and we are obsessed with it. All day long, the team के साथ वही hustle चलता है कि journey क्या है यार, friction कहाँ पे है journey में. Uh, it's all about the consumer insight that Rachna gets us, and that's worked very well for us. The left brain, right brain. Rachna is very close to the customer. Unfortunately, in this space, nobody wants to talk to me. So I have to intimately rely on Rachna for intimate insight.
And it helps that you guys are also life partners.
Yes.
So yeah, we can comfortably discuss. That really helped us in a big way. So the journey, the consumer insight, I think there has to be some method to the madness and methodical approach. Even then and even now, I mean, 0 to 100 there was a method, 100 to 5,000 there was a method, 5,000 to X there is a method, and I'm sure further on there is a method because we're talking about capturing a larger portion of the market. So you just cannot talk to each consumer. So there has to be a method at every stage, and I really don't know what is a method beyond the point where I have reached so far. So, but I'm sure it has to be methodical, system, process, tools, technology, is all part of the method. And the last I is, I think, iteration. How much ever perfection you do, it will break. And you will just, I just can't get it right. So iteration, iteration, and iteration. So it's a cyclic process, I guess. And we just don't have all the answers.
There's a question from the audience, and maybe pull Rachna in. How do you think the market is stacked, especially considering a larger portion of India sits in tier 2 and 3 in the market of female hygiene and female wellness, menstrual illness products?
Okay, so I think when it comes to tier 2, tier 3, right? I think, in my opinion, there's a complete digital explosion which has happened, which is making these like really hotbeds for user acquisition. Right? And some of our products, in fact, it's not just tier 2, tier 3, but we've discussed this. In our case, some of our products have gone to the remotest villages of India, especially northeast and across that belt, right? So I think there is digital savviness, there is awareness of the fact that they would want to try these products. I think also accessibility in our case, because of lack of accessibility to gynecologists, accessibility to going and visiting a doctor, when they get the right trust markers online, and when they get to see a brand educating them first about the problem and then telling them the solution, I think in our space that's a massive learning that we've had, right? And honestly, today I think technological barrier, I would say, to a great extent is kind of getting wiped out. Language barrier, yes, but it depends on how you like to see it, right? Is it really a language barrier, or I think that's the beauty of Indian diversity, that there are 6 or 7 regional languages which are very distinct, and how do you make your content in those regional languages to appeal? But fundamentally what we've understood is that if you explain the problem, then the product, and then the promise, I would call it as our three P's, and you simplify it rather than giving these really tall claims, right? And I think that's the beauty when you simplify it and you stick to what it does. They're able to kind of get that authenticity rubs off on people who want to try or who want to really invest in this line of treatment, and that's pretty much how those learnings have been used to then scale.
5 hours, three P's, and Jimmy. There are three big learnings that I'm taking away from this. And Vishal, to answer your question, the three P's that Rachna said did not include promotion and discounts. And that's why we invested in you. So
I'm still holding my
Thank God
ground
for my
on not
presence of
offering
mind.
discount.
Vinay, thank God for my presence of mind. I was hinging towards the fourth P. I just stopped short. Thank you.
and as you have encountered some of these consumer cohorts, Rachna, there's a bunch of questions around that saying there could be different archetypes or different cohorts of consumers you would have come across. Could you give us examples of how you dealt with two different cohorts? Because ultimately it's all about micro segmentation and really appealing to one smartphone user.
Yes. So for us, what was important was, like Vishal and we've already discussed, consumer insights, but a lot of surveys, short surveys that we've built into the system, which clearly helps us segment these consumers into different cohorts. So if you have a consumer, just taking an example, who has a severe case of PCOS, she's tried everything, right? She's not coming to Gynoveda or Ayurveda as the first choice. She's been to gynecologists, she's taken her oral contraceptive pills, hormonal pills. I mean, she's been through a range of treatments. She's frustrated, she's in anguish. She's literally given up everything and looking at Gynoveda as the last hope. How does that cohort of women with that kind of mindset, how do you onboard them, and more important, how do you nurture a relationship with them? Because if she's in a severe category, she needs to consume these medicines for a minimum of 10 to 12 months. So early on, basis our insights and what the team gathered, when we built our retention funnels today is not one size fits all. There is a different funnel that runs for severe case of consumers. Within that, there is a sub cohort of women who are looking to conceive. So, as we all know, with PCOS, there is a higher chance of women having difficulty to conceive, and that involves a completely different set of to dos. There's a different retention funnel that runs for these consumers. So, I think segmentation and then customizing the retention journey to nurture relationship at every stage, that's what we used the insights for. So I think we used the insights, one for onboarding consumers, and the second piece is how do we retain them, and that's where I think the support of the community, the master class that we send out to them, the webinars that we do, the diet support, I think these are all the stack that we built up towards retention. So in our case, for us, the retention benchmark is honestly 70%.
And in your journey thus far, Rachna, have you come across Ayurvedic skeptics? So there's a question around saying that there's a cohort of consumers out there who may or might have some of these symptoms and issues, but are Ayurveda skeptics. So have you
Of
come across
course,
them in your
yes.
journey yet? How have you dealt with them, and what's been your playbook there?
Yes, so when we started this Vinay, I would say a large portion of our, inquiries or the top call drivers that we were getting on our chat support and emails was everything to do with, does it have side effects? I would say that was pretty much what we were getting bombarded with, right? I mean, in spite of Ayurveda being our 5,000-year-old Vedic medicine system and something that we should be very proud of, unfortunately, there were skeptics, and this was coming out to us very strongly. And to evade that and to kind of once and for all nip it in the bud is where we took the education route. saying we'll have a doctor explain to you exactly, like I said, the three P's. And in the product, also, what herbs are we putting? I want to give you complete transparency in terms of what you're consuming, because this is not an external application, right? At least the current set of products are all digestibles. And for you to be able to digest something, there's not just going to be you, there are too many people influencing your decision. So we've had cases earlier where women would, buy the product online, and when it went and when the delivery guy was going to reach them, they would say, "Sorry, my doctor told me not to consume. I've changed my mind. My husband said, don't trust an online brand." We've had a lot of those trust deficit issues that we had to focus on, and which is why I said education and content to explain the problem and the product first, and then the promise.
Got it. If anyone has any questions in the audience, please put your hand up. I know we're facing technical difficulties. We can't see your name, but we'll try and get you in, and you can ask your questions directly with the panelists as well. But while that happens, is uh, so as you went about looking at these consumers and trying to convert them, etc. I mean, if you were to take a step back today and look at, advise any other entrepreneur looking to start their business, what kind of advice would you give them in terms on three vertices, right? Let's talk about which kind of channels should they look at first, what kind of metrics should they really optimize for, what kind of benchmark should they aim for, and what kind of org should they start building around them, or what kind of capabilities should they start partnering with, freelancers, consultants, agencies to help them build out the kind of reducing practice that you guys have built.
So, at least from the learnings of the last 2 to 3 years, Vinay, I think consumer insight is the key in our business. That's what we learned. We wouldn't have been here if we were not obsessed about consumer insight. And for us, the future is also consumer insight. So that's the number one thing. Uh, and consumer insights, the data is a mystery shopping, right? I mean, when you're looking at the data, you need to form your own metrics based on the kind of business that you're really looking at. Uh, but yeah, consumer insight is number one piece. We also learned that how do you present your case, whether it is content marketing, the way Rachna said, or your packaging, or your landing pages, or the design. Is it frictionless? Because today, I think that's hygiene. There was a time when, UX, UI was delight, but today I think it's a hygiene. Uh, I feel the third piece is when the consumer reach out to you, if the consumer is not going to get in support the right way, uh, I think it's going to break down. So consumer insight, frictionless consumer journey. After you've made a sale, I think is when the real evaluation begins in our case, because in our case, PCOS cannot be solved by just one time purchase. The person has to stick around for 6 months to 12 months for her to overcome. So I think post-sale support becomes extremely critical, the customer experience. I also feel in our journey, we realize because we are in the healthcare space, there is a third party validation that is very important to build the trust. And like we have seen, we recently did a market research study by an international company called Ipsos, and we stayed out of it. We gave them 1,000 consumers who have consumed our product for 3 months and 6 months, and we got out of the way and we said this is going to be the acid test. And they came back and they gave us the results because our biases can really affect that. So yeah, I think consumer insight, consumer feedback is the key. Awesome consumer journeys. I don't think so. We have still got there. We have seen some good conversions on our product pages and landing pages, but I think there is still miles to go. Landscape is constantly changing in terms of technology, touch points, and yeah, I think trust markers. FDA approved clinical trials for us healthcare space, that becomes very, very critical. And the Jimmy model is something that's guiding us.
So we've got a couple of attendees who are putting up their hands. So we'll try and I'll request my colleague Rimsha to allow them in so that they can ask us some of their questions as well. If you can just introduce yourself and then ask your question, that'll be great. Thanks. Okay.
Hi, is Dheeraj this side? Can you hear us?
Yes,
Hi,
Dheeraj.
Dheeraj.
Okay. So, hi Vishal, is Dheeraj Gupta. So, again, I just want to understand that since the journey of the business, which is a female hygiene or female space that you guys are into, it started with some sort of doctor. Uh, it started with some sort of medical practitioner, and it ends with some sort of, as you have rightly said, some sort of validation out of it. And the type of perception somebody has is always being saying that if we are doing something or the other. So how do you tackle that problem of start the validation at the start of the journey and the doctor piece, which plays a very important role of somebody in consuming a particular medicine or the services that you guys are providing?
I think good question, Dheeraj. When Rachna was interacting with she's chatted with over 5,000 to 7,000 consumers and doctor practitioners. In our case, we have a doctor team. They have been interacting over the phone and various other ways to understand. What we realized after 10,000 chats and calls, that there are only 20 questions that the consumer has. These are frequently asked questions. And we said if all of these 10,000 leads to just 20, 15 questions up your mind, we recorded videos and there were around 150, 200 videos by providing dimension, which otherwise a doctor would explain, or you would ask the doctor. So that is the number one thing that helped us, because that also brings out transparency from the company's side, because you're putting it out there in the public domain and putting it on camera. So that kind of builds trust, number one. And the second piece is there are two kinds of consumer we are experiencing in the market. One kind of consumer, early adopters, early majorities, and a section of that, who's very comfortable with self-care, do it yourself. Oh, I've understood you. I get you. Your instructions are clear. I'm going to follow it. And Ayurveda being a direct-to-consumer OTC product, they are comfortable buying. There is a section of consumer who feels that, hey, my problem is unique. And I feel I need to speak to somebody. For that, we have doctor consultation over the phone.
Okay, so can I articulate in a manner where we say that the people who are already gone to a longer phase of the problem have already been taken so much of dope of information and structure from lot of they have visited so many doctors, they have read online, they have been part of various communities, have talked to lot many people. So they are in a mode that almost they know a lot of things about it. And whenever you start answering something which is a typically standard 20 question, maybe because of an algorithm, you will be able to throw the right kind of a video to them, depending on their case, because case you already capture, I think beforehand you captured the case study of those people. So I would say that these are the people who are already spent a lot of time and being facing the problem for a quite good time are the people who are early adopters, whereas the people who are in an initial stage of the problem to be are the one who still require a lot of support and guidance and hand-holding from the whole ecosystem that you provide.
Absolutely. I think segmentation and the right kind of matching it with the right kind of support. Absolutely.
Okay. So last question, then what kind of a single-minded proposition you guys are chasing presently out there? I will not talk of vision, I will not talk of mission, because that is a bigger statement. But being a startup, you climb ladder step by step. So my thing was that what is the SMP presently you guys are chasing? Maybe I would say what's the SMP for your next quarter to be?
Sorry, can you expand the SMP for me?
It is single. What is the proposition? Single-minded proposition you guys are you guys are chasing presently, that this is what we want us to be stand for. But obviously vision and mission are the bigger statements, but when you say about when you in a startup you define your shorter goals, so that's a time when you say that okay, this is my goal and this is what I want to stand for next quarter or next half a yearly or for next 6 months down the line.
Dheeraj, I'm going to look at it from the consumer's angle, more from the business angle. For us, consumer is the centerpiece. We always talk to the consumer. So I think for me, the proposition to the consumer is freedom. Don't manage the problem. Treat the problem, get freedom from it. So if I'm already suffering with something, like I was suffering from psoriasis, and a doctor gave me, freedom from it, I think it is very liberating. And for a girl, who's suffering from PCOS, it's very liberating.
Exactly.
So freedom is the number one proposition. Treat the problem, don't manage the problem. And number two proposition at a larger level from a business, and I will not really get into the quarter 2, quarter 3 kind of a thing, is Google or Gynax se pehle Gynoveda. Think of period problem, think of Gynoveda. And I'm sorry, I'm not promoting Gynoveda right now. So.
Thanks so much, Dheeraj. I think we're at the end of the hour. Maybe one last question for both you guys, Vishal, Rachna, and individually. So if you look back at your last 20 months, what would you do? What would you have done differently now that you have, 2020 vision in hindsight? I'm sure there are lots of challenges you faced, lots of experimentation that you did. And if you were to change one thing, what would that be?
I think we should have hired faster, because building the team ahead of time, and Vinay, you've been ally in our case. You kept pointing that out, and obviously we were too deep in the trenches as people leading. If I have to do this, revisit this again and do it differently, I would definitely hire ahead of time. And that's a difficult call, because on one hand you're trying to balance the balance sheet, on the other side you're trying to balance the growth readiness. So yeah, I think that's one thing I would like to. Team is everything in our case.
And what about you, Rachna? How would you?
I think plus one to what Vishal said. In addition to that, Vinay, I would think diversification of channels. In retrospect, I think about 3 to 4 months back, we could have, when we had reached, let's say, a certain kind of leveraging optimization from our existing channel, we could have started.
And your existing channel was, because one of the questions asked was, what are the first channel that one should use for customer acquisition?
Yeah. So I think, yeah. So to respond to that question, we chose website and not marketplace only for one reason, because we don't get consumer data from it. And we wanted to be very intimately connected with the consumer. That was our first choice.
Great. Thanks. I mean, look at it, how time flies. We're at the end of the hour. It's been a super engaged conversation. Thank you so much, Vishal, Rachna, for taking the time, talking to all of us. Thanks to all the attendees for attending. I hope you found value in this. I'm taking away a lot, right? 5R, Jimmy, PP. And to answer your question, Vishal, which you kind of brought into the middle of the conversation, I think for us, the decision to invest was very easy. I think the passion that you guys got to the table, the passion of bringing Ayurveda from a pseudoscience to center stage, and the passion of really solving an issue that doesn't have too many options for women who are suffering from it. And especially in a cultural context like India, where even socially people don't want to talk too much about it. I think taking that passion to solve that problem actually made our investment decision very easy. Thank you so much for letting us be part of this journey with you. And I think every day we learn so much from you. And we hope to continue this journey and see it to a very large impact as we go forward.
Thank you, Vinay.
Thank you.
Thank you to you and the entire Fireside team, I keep saying this, together we are stronger. So thank you for being a partner in this journey, and thank you for having us today as a part of this session. I told you when you reached out to me, I said there's miles and miles to go and so much of learning, but it's humbling to be able to share this. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. It means a lot.
Yep.
Thanks, Vishal. Thanks, Rachna. Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Thanks, Vinay.